How to use layers in Photoshop. There's multiple types of layers in Photoshop. I'm going to go through some of them. Things like adjustment layers. You've got image layers such as this, or pixel layers. You've also got smart object layers. You've also got type layers. You've also got fill layers as well. So first thing to do, when you open a document, if you go to File and Open, in most cases, if it's like a JPEG or something like that, the file, once it's open, you'll notice you've got this locked over here. Now, it will be different, of course, if you open a PSD file. PSD files are Photoshop format files, and that file will have the layers set in a particular way already. And when you open it, you might see that, you might not see that. But if you want to remove it, because the thing is, you can't reposition, you can't scale this image unless you do that using it as layers. Now, of course, you can go to image and you can do image size and all those sort of things. You can resize it that way. But if you want to modify the size of the layer, you need to unlock it. So just go over here and just click. If you want to lock it again, simply click here. So it brings it back. So you can just go back and forth. And you can do that with any layer if you want. Well, now you can see you can resize it. You've got these little transform controls around the edge. Well, to use it, simply go Move Tool and make certain the Show Transform Controls set to on. If it's not, you won't see it. So click there. You can't do it. You can still move it around, but it's just far more flexible if you've got Show Transform Controls on. Obviously, individual preference. And then you can resize it. You can also rotate it and much, much more. Also, to actually confirm that, you have to commit it here. So commit or press enter on the keyboard or return. But I'm just going to cancel that. Don't want to do that. What you can also do is create other layers from this. You could create the same layer. So go to Layer and Duplicate Layer. Or right click and you've got options here with this layer to manipulate it. This appears sometimes, sometimes not. Go over here, click here. You've got all the various options for the thumbnails. If you click here, click there, you notice you've got this duplicate layer. In Photoshop, there's many different ways to access some of these commands. One of them is also a context sort of banner. Personally, I don't like that feature. But that's an option. So duplicate layer. So it just duplicates it. Click OK. And you can see now you've got two of those. And you can repeat that. Right click, duplicate layer, and so on. So you can create multiple layers. Don't need just one layer in an image. And you can manipulate them individually. So you can resize that one, press return or enter, go to this one, so select it. And that's what happens. To actually move it, you need to select it. So select that, and then you can reposition that and create all kinds of designs that way. Just going to remove them now. And you can delete as well. So with this, you can press the delete key on the keyboard or go down here and select this little trash can down the bottom. So just delete it that way. Also, another option for creating a layer, simply just go over here, rectangular marquee tool, and select part of it. So something like that. So that area is now selected. So all the pixels in this are now just got this selection around it. And I can copy them all in one go. So edit and copy, edit and paste. And now you can see I've got that layer on top of that. Because, of course, I've got exactly the same image below there, there's no difference. But if I go to the Move tool, you can now see the transform. And I can move it around, or reposition it. I can also hold down the Alt Option key and duplicate the layer. So with that, click there and you can see generates another one and so on. You can create multiple copies. I'm just going to delete them again. But what you can also do, you can resize this. If you resize it, maybe make it really small, press return or enter to conform it or commit it as it says. You can see what happens there. It doesn't look so great. And you press return. This time, you'll notice it's blurred. And if I repeat that, let's just do it again. Just make it really small again. Commit it. Confirm it. Press return. It just gets worse and worse. It doesn't look good. Well, what you can do is you can use smart objects. That's a special type of layer. So let's just select that again. Edit and copy, edit and paste. So you've got that layer. You can go to layer and down to smart objects and convert to smart. That layer needs to be selected. So long as it's selected, convert to smart object, it's converted to a smart object. Now what you can do exactly the same resizing. So let's just resize it, press return, resize it again, back to the same, and you can see it looks exactly the same. And the great thing about smart objects is you can apply effects to it, filter, say blur and Gaussian blur. Any effect can be applied, or most of them anyway. And you can see the blurred effect there. And click OK. And you'll notice over in the layers, you get this smart filter added with a Gaussian blur. The great thing about this is you can go back to this at any point, double click, bring up the panel and modify the radius or any of the other settings and click OK. Also, what you can do is you can resize it, you can modify it, but it's still unchanged. That's the key thing. Also, if you try and apply brushstroke, it creates a new layer. You cannot apply additional pixels to it that way. So just remove that. So this smart object is a special type of object. You can always remove this smart filter. If you don't want the smart filter, simply go here and right click and you can say delete filter mask. Do that. Also right click, disable clear smart filters and you can remove them. So you've got back to the standard one. Now it's still a smart object. Still a smart object. And if you want to edit that smart object, you need to just double click. So double click and you got that. And you can then modify that. And now you can apply brush strokes because this is in a special type of document, PSB. And you can just apply a brush stroke like that or anything and then close it. Now I don't want to do that, but if you close it, you would get that image changed. You can delete it. So delete that. Well, layers, you've got adjustment layers, you've also got type layers, you've got shape layers, and also you've got fill layers. So what's a fill layer? Well, fill layer is a special type of layer and it doesn't have any pixel information. So you can't manipulate it as you would a normal layer like this. So go to layer and you can go down here to new fill layer and solid color. You've got all the standard sort of color, gradient and pattern. So I'm just going to go for solid color in this case. Solid color and click OK. And then you can set the color. So let's just set that. So you've got a lovely red color on top of this. One thing about layers, and all layers can be modified in this way. Simply go here, you've got blend modes. So you can set the blend mode for this layer. So click here, so darken. So you get a lovely red effect with your image. Or maybe go for lighten. It's all completely live. So you can change it at any point. You decide, you know what? I want green instead of red. Double click, go there and change it to green. And then you've got a green effect added on top of your image. And also you've got a mask. Now this one doesn't have a mask on. You can add masks. Now masks are great for revealing parts of an image or not. So you can click on this. So you can select these. So select that. You can be working with obviously the color. But select that, you're working with a mask. And then you can add various things, maybe brush strokes, but also like gradients. So a gradient is a very basic gradient. You can see then if I apply that, part of the image is seen. That's the image below. This part is still kept as green. And you can see the result there. The black there, it's obviously clear. This is still covered with that green. And again, you can still modify this. So double click and maybe change it to blue. And also change the blend mode. You can still go through these and create all kinds of interesting designs that way. So let's just delete that. Again, layer, and down here, new fill layer, and you can go with gradient or pattern. So gradient, click OK. And the great thing about this, it's live. So you can decide, you know what, I want this legacy one. Select that, click OK, and you'll get the gradient tool. Please check my other videos on how to use the gradient tool. So you can then manipulate this gradient, reposition it. Still live, you can change it, maybe go for radial or other settings, and you can see the layer here. You can also add a mask, modify it as well. Also, blend modes again, so you can go for darken, You can create some interesting colourful designs that way, but it's still live. You can still manipulate this gradient. And once you've done that, you can also simply just delete it. So I'm just going to delete it that way. Now another type of layer, adjustment layers. So layer and go down to new adjustment layer, and you've got all these ones. So you've got quite a few ones. It's exactly the same as the image menu and adjustments. So maybe black and white. So with that, click OK. And then you can manipulate this. You can turn around and say the red, yellow, and so on, the greens, cyans, and so on. And you can see the layer here. Exactly the same as before with the fill layer, you've got a mask there. So you can always go there and manipulate it. Again, go here with this selected, apply a gradient, and you can then see result. You get some part of the colour, some is still left black and white. And also, at any point, you can always double click, brings up the panel of properties. And you can modify it. So you can go there and say tint instead. Maybe go for reds, yellows, greens, and so on to create all kinds of different images with that. Also, close. You can get rid of that by deleting it again. You can also go to layer, and you've got other options. You've got video layers, new video layer from files. So there are even more types of layers. Another layer type, this one, rectangle tool or custom shape tool or ellipse. Simply go down there, custom shape tool, and you go up here and you've got the option for shape. So shape, apply that. This one is an arrow, obviously. And with that, you see you've got now another layer. This is a special vector type of layer, and you can manipulate it. You can modify the points by going over here to the direct selection tool, select this, and tweak this arrow design. Just modify that. Now, this, unfortunately, you can't apply brush strokes to. Again, if you go over here, select brush tool, apply brush, you can see what happens. It generates this, but unfortunately is not applied to the arrow. But this can also be converted into a smart object. So you want, simply use the move tool. You can transform it, resize it, and because it's a vector, it could be any size, and also it doesn't degrade. So you can just make it small as that, big as that, no issue at all. But also go to layer and smart objects and convert to a smart object, and then apply effects to it. So filters, blur, Gaussian blur, and you can blur it like that, and click OK. And again, exactly the same as before, as a smart object, you can modify it any time. So you can just double click here and modify that, and you got back to that arrow there. Click OK. Also, another type of layer, type. So just go over here, horizontal type tool, click here, and you got type. And you can see you've got a layer here, and it will just say T there. And you can resize it and also modify it. Obviously, change the text, select different letters, and so on. And again, move tool, you can resize it, reposition it, and you can see the layer over here. Exactly the same as all the other things. You can all go up here to the blend modes and go through darken, color dodge, and so on to create all kinds of different designs that way. Also, what you can do, smart objects as well. So layer, smart objects, and convert to smart object. So you can do exactly the same. You can still edit the text, but it means you can apply filter effects to it. Filters and maybe distort and twirl. And just distort the text like that and click OK. You can also just create new layers. Simply go to layer and new and layer. There's also other options as well, such as background from layer. Also, you can group them. Also, artboards and much, much more. So let's just create a new layer. And the great thing about layers is you can apply various brush strokes, gradients, various effects, other images, all those sort of things, but you still don't modify the layer below. So just go over here and I'm going to apply a paintbrush, and I can apply maybe some black there or green or whatever colour, maybe some red and so on. I'm obviously just using a mouse just very quickly to apply that, but that can be moved around and repositioned. You can position it there. If you apply it directly on the layer, this layer, you can't do that. You can always, at this point, just simply resize it, move it around, and also apply various colour effects to it, reposition it, and also effects, and also layer effects. So layer and layer style, and maybe go down to stroke or drop shadow. So you can add a variety of different effects to it that way. And click OK. But still, the image, the underlying image, is not changed. Also, you'll notice you've got blending options there. So let's just go to layer, layer style, and you've got blending options. And that's a really useful thing with layers. So let's just remove that one, because what you can do with this, exactly the same. So layer, right click, and you notice you've got all these ones, you've got blending options. So blending options, click that. You've got all these features, satin, stroke, which all can be applied to this. Maybe not particularly effective on a solid layer like this, but they're still of some use. But also what you can do is you can change the opacity. You can also change the fill opacity. Also, you can go to channels. So you might want to just use this, say with the red, green turned off, and just what you've got in the blue channel. So you've got all the blue pixels, green and red. And also, you might want to blend it. Obviously, with this, there's only one layer. But if you want, you can simply change this and just reduce down. You can see then you get more or less of that image, and click OK. The great thing about layers is you can export them. So go to layer and you can go down here and quick export as PNG or export as. So you want to simply select that with that layer selected, and you will see you get this panel pop up. It takes a few seconds to process. Once you've done that, you can then manipulate the size. So you can see that. You can turn around and say, oh, you know what? I want it to be 3 times the size. And you can see, obviously, it gives some information there, 6,000 by 4,000. Obviously, it takes a bit of time again to process, and it will give a suffix when you save the file. And you've got different formats. You've got PNG, JPEG, and GIF. Also, you've got various things like here. You can still modify this as well. So you might decide, you know what? I want 8,000 instead. So 8,000 and 4,000. And then you can export it. So that's a quick way of quickly exporting that particular layer, that selected layer. But cancel. Also, you can go to layer, and there's options for renaming the layer. You might not want to call it layer 0. Now you can also do that, of course, in the panel itself. There's also layer masks, and there's also other options for grouping layers and also hiding layers, as well as locking layers as well. Ultimately, also, you might want to flatten the image as well. Hope you found this of interest. Any questions, please let me know in the comments below. A like or dislike, always appreciated. Bye.